Hello everyone, in this lesson, we will make a few quick miscellaneous edits and improvements to our theme. This lesson probably won't feel super educational, as it's more of just to follow along and do this and that type of thing. Without further ado, let's get started. So the first thing that I want to do is make sure that our website is responsive, or in other words that it's optimized for devices of all sizes. So for example, if someone viewed this website on a smartphone, what would it look like? Well, check this out. If you're using Google Chrome as your web browser, and I recommend that you do, as Chrome has some of the best developer tools in the world. But if you're using Chrome, you can right-click anywhere on the page and choose Inspect. And then from this Developer Tools pop-up window, I want you to click on this second icon that we see towards the top left. It's two rectangles. It looks like maybe a smartphone and a tablet. Go ahead and back in your main web browser window. Chrome lets you simulate different mobile devices, so we can use this menu up here and we can choose between the Galaxy Nexus, iPhone, iPad. So I'm using the iPhone 6, and obviously this is not what we want our website to look like on a smartphone, because what we're seeing is a layout designed for a large desktop monitor, and then it's just zoomed and scaled out to fit on a tiny screen. So in order to actually read any of this text on a smartphone, you would have to pinch zoom in and then awkwardly scroll around and then maybe pinch zoom back out. It's super awkward, right? So instead of the iPhone adapting to our website and zooming it out in order to fit, we want the opposite. We want our website to adapt to the size of the device. So in order to do that, jump into your text editor and in your theme folder, open up header.php. Now up towards the very top, within this head section, right above this PHP WP headline, let's create a new line and type this in with me. Let's add a new meta tag, and we'll give it an attribute of name and set that equal viewports. And then after the quotes, let's add another attribute named content, and set that equal width equals device width, so that will tell web browsers and devices to just be true to themselves and use their own native device size or device width. And then within this same set of quotes, let's add a comma and say initial scale equals 1. Cool. So if I save this and refresh my iPhone simulation, much better. So now the layout has collapsed to a single column view. The iPhone is using its natural size, and the content of the website has kind of squished down to fit and up in the header. Instead of seeing all the navigation links, we can click on the icon to toggle the mobile menu. Cool. Now I do want to point out that this meta tag that we added is not magical, meaning this line on its own will not make a website responsive. You need to write your CSS code and your CSS layout to be responsive, and then this meta tag is sort of the cherry on top that tells devices to use their native size. Now, if you're curious about writing responsive mobile-friendly CSS, I've already created 2 entire other courses. In this course we want to stay focused on PHP and WordPress, and we don't want to get derailed with 10 or 20 hours of CSS code. So long story short, if you're ever working with WordPress and you know for a fact that you have responsive CSS but the website still isn't acting responsibly, you're probably just missing this meta tag in your head section. Okay, now let's change gears and move on to the next topic. Up on line number 2, we have this opening HTML tag, and we want to be sure to tell web browsers what language our website is using. Now when I say language, I don't mean HTML or PHP or JavaScript. I mean human languages, like English or Spanish or French, or you get the idea. Now WordPress has a function we can use here that will dynamically look at the language of your site and the language setting that you chosen WordPress and output the appropriate tag here. So place your cursor in between the L and the greater than symbol. And then what we're gonna do is drop into PHP and call a WordPress function named language attributes. Now, if I save this and refresh the page, obviously we don't see any visual difference, but if we inspect the page you can see that on the opening HTML tag here, WordPress added a line or language attribute and give it a value of English US. Cool. And if you chose a different language in your WordPress settings, the appropriate language tag would be displayed here. So that way search and visitors of your website know what language they can expect. Let's move on to the next tip. So back in our code in header.php, within the head section another meta tag. So right above the meta tag that we just added a moment ago, let's add a new line and create another meta tag. And let's give it an attribute of char set, short for character set, and let's set that to equal an empty pair of quotes. And then within those quotes we want to drop into PHP. So we can use a WordPress function now before we type out the function name. Just a little bit of context. This is how you tell the web browser what type of characters are on the page. Right. And this might be different depending on the language of your website. So WordPress will dynamically look at your language settings and a few other op value here. So we want to call a WordPress function named bloginfo. And then within the parentheses we will give it an argument of char set, short for character set. So if I save that and refresh my page in my developer tools, I can look at the source code for the page, and if I dig into the head element, WordPress is now generating this meta tag with a character set of UTF-8, which makes sense since my website is in English and I live in North America. Cool. Tip in this lesson. So back in our text editor in header.php, I want you to find the opening body tag and in between the letter Y and the greater than symbol. Let's add a space and drop into PHP. And what we're going to do is call a WordPress function named body_class. Now, this is probably one of my favorite WordPress functions because check this out, if I save this and refresh the page, we can see that on the opening body tag. WordPress added a class attribute and gave it all sorts of values, and these change depending on which page or screen a user is visiting. So we see home. Because I'm on the home page, we see logged in because I'm currently signed in. But if I go to a different page, if I go to the About Us page and if I inspect or view the source again, now check out the body tag, it has totally different classes: page, template, default page ID, 16 page parent. Cool. And if I go to one of the children pages like our history and check out the inspector tool, now we see page ID, 22 page child parent, page ID, 16. So what this does is it gives you all sorts of neat information about the current screen you're viewing, and then you can use these class names in your C if you want to style a particular page in a different way, or you can even use these classes in your JavaScript. Now that's going to bring this quick miscellaneous lesson to a close. We jump into the next lesson. I do want to show you how to exit out of this mobile responsive mode, so you can just click to inspect again and then you can just click this same icon a second time to exit out of that mode. Cool. So now we're back in regular desktop mode. Looking ahead to our next lesson, we will learn how to create dynamic WordPress powered navigation menus, and you'll be able to edit and maintain them from the WordPress admin appearance menu screen. So you can set one menu location up here in the header, a second one for this footer column, and the third one for this footer column. You'll learn how to create as many different menus and menu locations as you need. Should be a lot of fun. Let's rolling, and I'll see you then.